Hi, welcome back to Atkinson Flowers Law. We are discussing today all the news that's been taking place in immigration for perhaps the last 2 or 3 months. All of it impacts you. So stay with us. Like, share, subscribe, and tell a friend about our channel so that you can get good information. Remember, good help helps. Welcome back to the channel. So many things to talk about. Where do we start? I think a good place is as it relates to citizenship or naturalization. The government has just recently indicated that persons who want to become United States citizens will now have to prove something a little bit beyond the usual good moral character. What does that mean? Essentially, what the government is saying is that not only do you have to provide them with the documentation that proves your good character, such as the fact that you pay your taxes, if you pay your child support, if you pay alimony, but now they want you to go a little further. They're asking that you provide information about things like your community involvement. So, do you volunteer with your church? Are you helping the Boys and Girls Clubs in your community? Do you do anything extra at work that could prove that you are the type of person that the United States want to be here? Of course, you know that that has drawbacks because, for example, in your community, you may live in a community where you don't really see your neighbors or you may not even know your neighbors. You might have only recently moved to that community, and so it is going to be difficult to find someone in your community who might be able to provide you with a reference to say, yes, this person is the type of person that I think we want to have in the community. That's just one of the drawbacks that we'll have to consider when and if this really comes into fruition. Another recent development as it relates to immigration is the fact that for some countries, they will now have to pay their nationals will now have to pay a bond when they're coming to the US for visitors visas. Now, this bond can range in the amount that you pay. All well and good. However, the problem is going to come with these two things. One, how do you pay this bond? And two, how do you get back your money when you return to your home country? Those things have not yet been ironed out. And of course, there is a even bigger issue. And that issue is, do you even have the money to pay this bond upfront? Because it's going to be a bond that is required to be paid upfront, i.e., before you come to the US. And as everyone knows, cash is hard to come by. And after you've paid for your various non-immigrant visa fees, to now have to pay on top of all of that an additional fee that they're calling a bond, it may well be a barrier to entry for some persons. We'll see how that unfolds. A third area of concern for immigration now is the fact that there were several categories that for the last few years, those persons did not have to attend a US embassy for their interview. The embassy has now decided that those categories of persons will now have to enter the embassy, go through that entire process for their approval. That is going to be a problem because obviously some persons may live far and would have been relying on the fact that, oh, I don't have to go physically to the embassy for the renewal of my specific visa, for the approval of my specific visa. So that is going to be an issue. And of course, it's also going to now mean that on the side of the embassy, it can only physically hold so many persons at one time. The embassy visa officers can only physically deal with so many persons at one time. Obviously, the backlog that is already there for visas is going to actually increase. So we will have to see how that pans out. Enhanced scrutiny. That is becoming the watchword of US immigration and all of the related offices that deal with immigration. And what does this enhanced scrutiny mean? It really means that now, more than ever, whatever application you're putting in to the US immigration authorities, you have to make sure that it has 100% accuracy. You have to make sure that your application has 100% accuracy. I'll say it for the third time. You have to make sure your application has 100% accuracy. At the end of the day, the application is yours. And as such, you can't be heard to say, oh, I didn't know that this mistake was on it. Or I didn't know that the person who prepared it for me didn't realize that I had a criminal charge or that I had been deported. None of that will really matter, because enhanced scrutiny means that on the side of the US immigration authorities, they are examining to see if there are any mistakes, any inconsistencies, anything that they can attribute to you being less than truthful on your application. And so I say to persons who are completing applications on their own or with assistance, make sure you are checking those applications with the proverbial fine-tooth comb. It is absolutely critical that you are doing that, because a simple mistake can result in a denial of your immigration benefit. A simple mistake can result in you getting what is called a request for further evidence, or worst case scenario, you could get a notice of intent to deny or a denial of the particular immigration benefit that you were seeking. And so I would urge persons, as we are navigating these uncharted waters of immigration, that you consider making sure your applications are very, very clear, making sure that if you're completing the applications by yourself, you are very, very accurate, making sure that if you are getting assistance to complete those applications, that every question that is on the form is asked of you and you provide an answer. And also making sure that you keep a copy of all the documentation that you're sending into USCIS. Because when your application goes into USCIS or whatever immigration authority you're submitting your documentation to, you need to make sure you have a copy of those documents, so that if they come back to say you made an error on this section or on that section, you yourself can double check on the documentation to see